Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you another video. All right, so the news is the Lakers could be moving into the top 5 of the draft, if at all possible. That may be an aim for our franchise. I don't know how it would be possible. I agree with Trevor Lane. He's speaking on it as we speak right now, and listening to him, I'm on the side of him with that one. I just don't know how possible it would be. Now, if I would I want to do that? Yeah, as closely as I'm following the draft, I would love to be in the top. I'd love to have the number 1 pick in this draft, even though I think this is probably one of the worst years to have it. I still think that this draft is better than people think it is, and I think getting into the top 5 may cost less this year than it may ever, which is also something that has to be taken into account. It may not nearly cost as much to get in the top 5 of this draft as it will next year. So maybe that's what the Lakers are thinking. While everybody else is trying to move down, we're trying to move up. While everybody else is trying to find a superstar, we already have 2. So we more so likely need a Donovan Clingan than maybe a Portland will, or, you know what I mean? And so I personally think Donovan Clingan would be a good pick for us. I'm not a fan of his, but that doesn't mean I don't canvass the league and see where he would go and fit. And our place is definitely one of those places. Although I've been on the record saying that I don't want us to bring ourselves a center that can't shoot. From what I understand, he's been showing that he can. So that's a thing. If he can shoot like a Valanciunas is able to shoot, that's good enough for me. He don't need to be Dirk Nowitzki. You know what I mean? Just be able to, if they want to play around and leave you out there, be able to hit 1 or 2. To create the space for the rest of the team so they can't leave you out there. But I don't think he's going to be out there very much anyway. That's probably not how we're going to have him lined up most of the time. And even from those areas, you get him the ball, he can make plays for others. So while I'm not a big fan of rebuilding with Donovan Clingan, for a team that already has a defensive anchor like Anthony Davis and a superstar like LeBron James, Donovan Clingan on a rookie contract is a good thing for us, a very good thing for us. And we can have him slide in as a role player instead of what some of these teams that are likely going to draft him, like Washington or Charlotte or somebody, needs him to be better than what it is I think he's going to be. We need him to be exactly who he is. So I like him for that situation. I like him for Memphis. Those are the situations I like Donovan Clingan in. I don't expect for him to be a superstar. I don't have him being an all-star in this league. And I don't need him to be. I just need him to come in on a rookie contract, be a rim protector, make plays for others, create space if absolutely necessary, and sit down. I don't need him to play 40 minutes a game either. I would love for him to be a better free throw shooter. That's what concerns me about Clingan. But as I said, that concern comes from the idea that I'm a rebuilding team trying to bring in a rebuilding anchor piece. Not necessarily our Lakers situation where we just need somebody to come in, play the center position, be heavy, be tall, and defend Jokic. I can't find a guy maybe in the league that I think will probably have a better chance for us defending Jokic than Clingan, who's known for his defense and is about 280 pounds and very cerebral himself. That's the piece we need. So for those who are thinking it makes a lot of sense for the Lakers to try to get Clingan somehow, put me on that list. I do not like Clingan as a rebuilding team, but I love him for a team that already has everything, is trying to win. He's definitely that for that situation. So yeah, that should be something the Lakers should dream about doing, but probably be I don't think it's gonna happen, because I think it's several things in the way of the Lakers actually being able to get Clingan. One, you could trade into the top 5, somebody take him at 3. That's how important he is to a lot of these teams. I want to say this without a whole lot of knowledge, but I peg the top 3 teams in this league with not being the most together teams, as we are not as well with our front office. But I don't look at those teams as teams I just simply expect to make what I would consider good decisions. So even though some of these teams don't need Donovan Clingan, or he probably should not be seen as a rebuilding piece, I wouldn't put past Atlanta taking him at 1 or Washington taking him at 2, because if they were really good at what they do, they wouldn't be in those positions where they have those picks. So I don't expect those teams to get it right. They rarely do. And in a draft where the top guys are not superstars, you get the idea that maybe they'll pass on a Oliver Sarr, or they'll pass on on Ricochet. If the Lakers were to get a top 5 and one of those guys fell to us and we didn't get Clingan, I think we'd be extremely happy. If we had a chance at a Stephen Castle, I think we'd be extremely happy. If we had a chance at Ricochet, I think we'd be extremely happy. So getting into the top 5 and missing out on Clingan is not the end of the world. But if you get into the top 5 with the intention of addressing your center position and he doesn't come to you, you could find yourself disappointed. But me personally, if I just happen to be a team at the top, I'm not aiming for Clingan necessarily. So if we miss out on Clingan, but we do get that, find a way to trade for the 5 pick, whatever we get there, I'm gonna be pretty damn excited about. I'm for us. There are certain players at the top of this draft that we're gonna have to wait on. But as I told you guys in a previous video, I think the Lakers are so close to their rebuild that that's not entirely a horrible thing if we happen to find a high level, high upside project that can't necessarily help us this year. You don't necessarily want to trade up and get rid of helpful assets to get them, but if it's going to cost us Gabe Vincent and maybe Jalen Hood-Schifino, then you'd probably be willing to jump into the top 5. Now, I said I didn't want to trade Jalen Hood-Schifino because we drafted him 17 last year. He's a first round pick last year. We don't have many of those. But to get into the top 5, I'd imagine it's going to cost me him and maybe a few other young prospects. So I just assume that the Lakers will have to do that. And I wouldn't trade Jalen Hood-Schifino to get into the top 12, like 12, 11, 10. But to get in the top 5, I definitely would be happy to do that. So, the Lakers got to do what they feel is best. I personally think they're probably aiming for Clingan. That makes the most sense to me if you're trying to trade up to get a big, because there ain't too many bigs in our range outside of the 17 range that would otherwise also be available. You should be able to get Edey. You should be able to get Holmes. You should be able to get Filipowski. You should be able to get, in theory, Khalil Ware. Like, those guys should still be on the board. Tyler Smith, who's also somebody I did some homework on last night. I think he would probably be okay for us as well if we took him, try to fill in that role. But at the end of the day, we need somebody heavy, tall, defensive, and smart. And Donovan Clingan fits all of those boxes. So I don't know how much we'd be willing to give up to get Donovan Clingan's piece. Or trade into that top 5. I don't think we can do that. I give it probably like a 25% chance of us actually being able to do that. But if I could secure an opportunity to get that piece, I think it would be helpful for us. Now, it's noteworthy to note that he has foot problems. And bigs with foot problems coming into the league as rookies is a bad thing most of the time. So let's make that very clear. I do not expect Donovan Clingan to be the most conditioned athlete to start the season. So the Lakers may want to bring him along slowly. They may even want to take some time to get his conditioning right before they actually put him on the floor. It may not be overly necessary that a guy like that play in the summer league or something like that. I just want him to be healthy by playoff time, literally. And throughout the course of the season, when we run into the Senguns and the Jokic's and the Wembanyamas, we're going to need him for those games. But he's known for only playing a couple minutes a game. And so it would be wise to also get someone also that can play the center position in the event that he's not there. You almost want to prepare for him not being there based on the foot problems and just his overall conditioning. I don't peg him as somebody I expect to play 82 games a year or maybe even 70 games a year. So that's just what I think of him. But I'm not against the Lakers trading up if they're targeting him. For us, it's good. I think, there are a lot of guys in that top row. A guy like Stephen Castle doesn't necessarily space the floor, but is so good at so many other things. Point of attack defense is something that the Lakers are very interested in addressing right now. So if you can't address the big man spot, I would love for us to be able to get a defensive player who can guard from the point of attack. However, it's something that came to mind when I was thinking about this. I really think the Lakers' biggest problem right now, beyond all the holes in our roster, is the fact that we don't have two-way players. I really don't want to bring in a guy that's only good on one side of the ball, even if he's extremely good on one side or the other. I really think the Lakers should be trying to find somebody that can help them on both sides. Now, I believe Donovan Clingan could, listening to people talk about him, he could probably finish very well. He's not really an offensive player, more of a defensive anchor, but he finishes pretty good, and he's really resourceful in playmaking situations. He could be a point center, more or less. So you really like the idea of him being able to walk away with like 7-8 assists with Anthony Davis' ability to pass the ball as well. You got playmaking coming from your front court at all times, obviously LeBron James as well. So I like his fit on this team in a nutshell, and I wouldn't sway away from considering him a two-way player, even though that's not what I'm talking about. I need somebody who can do both. So if I'm trading into the top 5, if I'm not walking away with Clingan, I might be hesitant to take somebody that I don't think can help me on both sides of the floor. Castle is an offensive player who can do a lot of different things, but cannot shoot the ball. Do I need him to have the ball in his hands at all times? Because he's going to want to be a starting point guard. I don't need, personally, my starting point guard to not be able to shoot. So I'm not saying steer clear Stephen Castle if you get in the top 5, but I am saying I'm probably going to look at somebody else. I'm probably looking at Ron Holland or somebody like that. Now, Reed Sheppard, I don't think he's the greatest player for the Lakers because I really don't need a combo guard that short in this situation. I'm a fan of Reed Sheppard. Here we go again with the idea of what's good for us may not be good for the field, but I'm likely to like the player more so than I like our situation for that player. Reed Sheppard, I'm high on. In fact, I've been on record saying I think Reed Sheppard can be one of the best players coming out of this draft, period. He epitomizes a two-way. Only problem is his metrics are bad. He's 6'1", short arms, but he barely misses, and he has very quick hands, and he's extremely good defensively. It's just who is he guarding at that height and that size? That's the only thing. You could be fantastic defensively like a Fred VanVleet, but who are you actually guarding? You know what I'm saying? So that's the problem with Reed Sheppard, and he's not necessarily a natural point guard. So I'm bringing him in to be like a shorter version of prime, a super version of prime. What's the man's name we had with the Lakers? Had a hard time. We played him too damn much. Back in the year we won the championship, he left because he had to go attend to his child and wasn't able to win the championship with us. Avery Bradley. That's kind of the role that I would be bringing Reed Sheppard in if we were to get into the top 5. That's not who I'm going to use my top 5 pick on for a role like that when I don't think he could be my primary point guard at that position. Dillingham plays bigger than he is, but he's really small, man. He's like 6'1", 165 pounds. I think I'm heavier than him, and that's not a good thing. So for me, it's like, again, who are you guarding? And unlike Reed Sheppard, he's not very good defensively, but he's excellent offensively. So what you might end up finding out, this dude can be an all-star, game-changer type of guy. We have defined what we think of these smaller guys. He can be as lethal as maybe I don't want to overstate it, but like Isaiah Thomas, Sacramento, Boston Isaiah Thomas, he might be able to do some things like that, but he's not a natural point guard. So he's not going to do some of the playmaking stuff Isaiah did, and he's not as small as Isaiah. But the point is, he's hardly ever going to miss. He's going to be able to pick his spots. He can walk away with a bunch of points, and it's going to help you defensively more than Isaiah ever could, just from his skills and his quickness and his talent on the defensive end. So if only the man was a little taller, he'd be like, if he were 6'6", he would be the number 1 overall pick in this draft easily, Reed Sheppard. But at 6'1", it's just like you find yourself frustrated with what you think he can become, because he's likely going to be rendered to play the 2 a lot or backup 1, but he's better than most backups should be, so it's going to be weird. But if he develops into a real point guard, that'll be great for his overall prospect going forward. And that's the thing about a lot of these dudes, man. Even Bronny James. Like, you got short guys that are not floor generals. So it's like, I don't want to run you at the 1 and then have to have somebody else be the floor general at a different position. Although with the Lakers, it probably makes more sense than most teams, with LeBron James being able to play make and Austin Reeves, if we're able to keep him from other positions, can play make. So that's the kind of situation I guess you would want to read Sheppard and Bronny James in. But these short dudes that just don't run the point, it's a little awkward when you start talking about how to build around them or introduce him into situations where things are already built a certain way. So it's just tricky. I don't know if I'm a rebuilding team, I really want to start my rebuild with Reed Sheppard. And if I need a point guard, I don't know if Reed is probably the guy that I'm going to ask to do that. But he is a hell of a player and should be able to do a lot of great things on both sides of the floor. So that's why it gets tricky. You're going to trade into the top 5. But there's a few guys that really don't fit your situation that will be available to you. So you might end up trading up to get 5 and then get somebody in the 10 range any damn way if you're doing things correctly. It's going to be a lot of guards on the board, y'all. That's what people are likely going to find out. We're going to be frustrated with some of these teams that don't need guards, that are going to take guards because they just are going to be on the board. It's not a lot of forwards, not a lot of centers in this range, in that top 20. It's a bunch of little guys at the top, and then you start finding some of the bigger guys and small forwards floating back to the end of the lottery and the beginning of the outside lottery. So there's going to be some situations where somebody, whether it be Dillingham or Collier or some of these dudes are going to go to situations where they're already guards unless these picks are traded. So I think the likelihood some of these picks are traded is high, and I think the likelihood that some of these dudes go into log jams at the guard spot is high as well. Portland is probably going to end up drafting a guard, which is absolutely horrible for their situation. But that's probably going to happen. San Antonio would love to get a guard. So these are things that, San Antonio is probably a place you could take a guard, but Houston may take a guard. Detroit may end up taking a guard. So I guess what this comes around to being is that some of these teams in these top ranges probably would be best to trade their pick, and maybe it makes it so that it's easier for the Lakers to get in there, since there could be some, dare I say, urgency to move out of these areas so that they don't bring themselves a player that they probably can't give the minutes to. I think that bodes well for the young Serbian point guard who got his knee messed up. I think the likelihood that somebody brings him in without the intention of playing him this first year may make it so that one of those teams that don't need a guard may take him because they know it's a good chance he doesn't play this season. They can shake some things up, play the value up of some of the other guards, move on from some of those guards at the trade deadline or here in the offseason, and then have him start the season to 2025 as their starting point guard, as to where they will have shaken off some of those guard situations. So that's something I've been thinking a lot about, man. The idea that particular piece falls doesn't have to necessarily be if trades don't occur, because if I'm a GM, I don't mind bringing him in knowing he probably ain't going to play this season if I got a bunch of guards. So these are things that we're thinking about, man. I never know what his name is when it's time for me to talk about it. I don't know why that is, but that's not the first time this happened. But nevertheless, I just think the likelihood that the Lakers move into the top 5 in a nutshell probably isn't great, but when you look at the details of what it is I just described, some of these teams need to get the hell out of those ranges or they're going to end up with stuff that they don't need. Portland needs to trade their pick in theory. Houston definitely wants to trade their 3rd overall pick. And it sounds like they're not going to be able to get Bridges away from Brooklyn in order to do it. So I know they liked Austin Reeves in the past. They wanted to sign him. We signed him to a fantastic contract. I don't necessarily want to send him out for the 3rd overall pick and say whatever contract, I don't know who the contract would be coming back to match. Maybe we send that to a 3rd team, find another way to do it. I don't know. But if a team's willing to give us something like that, maybe the Lakers would be willing to do it. I don't know that I am willing to do it, but there are certain players in this draft that you may want over Rui Hachimura or Austin Reeves at the top of the draft. You may want a Ron Holland or a Klingon over Rui Hachimura. You know what I'm saying? You may. And judging by the way things went with Rui last year, I like Rui a lot, but I don't trust Rui to defend the people I need him to defend to be a 4 on this roster. That's my problem with Rui. I like Rui the player, but just like I described in other situations, I may not like him for the situation he's going to be in. We could not defend Jokic. He could not necessarily help us in certain areas that we needed him to help us as a 4. He can't necessarily play the 3. Bron can't play the 3. So we're kind of redundant on players like that who aren't big enough to defend Jokic. And if LeBron James gets hurt, you definitely want Rui Hachimura. But if LeBron James is healthy, I think we've proven to ourselves that maybe we can better utilize that cap space than using Rui there. We have too many 4s as is that can't not play the 5. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Vanderbilt, same thing. I don't need Vanderbilt as much as most people believe we do. I like Vanderbilt just as much as I did when we first got him, but the injury issues were frustrating, coupled with the fact that he really can't be counted on very much on the offensive end at all. I know people are waiting for him to come around and hitting his jumper. It looked great the game he got hurt against the Celtics. We finally seen him play a good game and he got hurt, right in that same game. It's ironic. But I just felt like we found so many different lineups where he didn't fit because of the presence of Anthony Davis not stretching the floor, because of, different shooting issues that we had. And you think about D'Lo possibly leaving, which makes us a worse three-point shooting team. I just don't have a need for all defensive another four, that can't help me offensively stretch the floor or nothing in that way. I need that piece to be able to shoot. And I like him as a point of attack offensive player, but if you're going to be taking away so much, defensive player rather, but if you're going to be taking so much away from the offensive end, then you're giving back all the greatness that you give us defensively by not being a threat offensively, and ultimately the score not coming about in the right way with him on the floor. So Vanderbilt is a cult hero here. We love Vanderbilt, the guy. We like what we've seen from him that was good. But once I start thinking about some of the lineups we put him in, the starting lineup issues that we had, constantly leaving him open in the corner, bricking, the injury issues, I like him at $4 million, but now it's going to be time to start re-ing up and paying him very soon. I don't know I want to pay him what it is he's going to demand when I see so many different problems there. So many different problems. And that's my problem with Vanderbilt. I like Vando, but not Vando that now is starting to pile up injuries. I like Vando, but not Vando to where my lineup is being crunched by defensive players who get to crowd out my ball handlers, because they don't have to deal with him. Then they can leave him open in the corner. They can turn their back to him and all different types of stuff like that. I don't like that dynamic at all. At all. And so that's when it becomes a problem. I could deal with one of those problems, but not both of them. If you're going to be that much of a deficiency on the offensive end, you can't have injury issues that keep you out for the whole damn season. I can't have both of those problems. If I can use him to move up to 3 or 5 or something like that, I would be considering that. I'm not going to just toss him in and just commit to that. I'm not trying to kick him off my team. But if the right situation comes along, he's gone. If I'm the GM. And I'm bringing back a two-way player. I like him defensively. He's a hell of a defensive player. But he's not a hell of an offensive player. And that really hurts our lineup. Now, if Anthony Davis shot like Dirk Nowitzki, that wouldn't be a problem. But because he don't, if Austin Reeves could ball handle like Kyrie Irving, not as much of a problem. Because that crowded out defense that is created by people being able to turn their back against him, it doesn't likely turn into as many turnovers when you have a ball handling merchant like Kyrie. But we don't. So when pressure is put on some of these ball handlers, the ball is going the other way. Bron turns the ball over, not a great ball handler. Austin has some nice deck moves, but he's not a great ball handler. I don't know who's playing point guard if D'Lo leaves, which is another thing we need to consider. So maybe a Rob Dillingham helps with that, but I don't need Rob Dillingham being a one-way guy who's getting hunted on the defensive end come playoff time. So you see what I'm saying? There's no real ball handlers outside of Rob Dillingham in this whole playoffs, in the whole draft. They don't. That's one of the problems with this draft. Matas Buzelis is a good ball handler as a wing, but he has some other issues, including stretching the floor, that people are trying to talk themselves into saying that he can shoot. So, everybody in this draft has their issues, but what you can't do is compound more of your issues by bringing yourself some one-way guys, especially if you're going to be trading away a two-way guy like Rui, who can play on both sides of the floor, even though he has some defensive IQ issues, in my opinion. But ultimately, he's a good weak side help defender and somebody who can block some shots and rebound and stuff like that. I think he's a much better rebounder than people give him credit for, by the way. So, yeah, these are just things I'm thinking about. Rui and Vanderbilt, if I can turn them into Ron Holland or Klingon, I'm probably going to consider it, to be honest with you. If I can turn them into an upside two-way guy, I'm going to shave off some of this one-way stuff, man. I just am. I want everybody on my team to be able to do both. I want everybody on my team to be able to shoot. If you can't do those things, you are part of why we sucked last year. I'm just being honest. I'll be completely honest. We had way too many guys that could defend and not score, or guys who could score and couldn't defend. And some of them dudes coming back. Like Cam Reddish is likely coming back. So, you know, Christian Wood is coming back. These is one-way guys, man. And for me, I don't want any more one-way guys on the Lakers, personally. I want just about everybody who can only do one side somewhere else, outside, basically. So, yeah, that's my point of view, man. I'm doing laundry right now, and somebody forgot to get their clothes out of the dryer, and the other two dryers are being used, so I'm just kind of wasting time, hoping that they finally got their clothes out of that third dryer so I can put them in there, sitting in the washer for no reason. So that's what really is going on here, man, setting my whole day back. But I did get a chance to make this video because of it, so I appreciate y'all being patient with me as I'm trying to be patient with them. But otherwise, that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate everyone for watching BDL 44, and I'm out.